The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Hail Varsity Radio is on the road. It is Nebraska-Colorado week. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We are live in Estes Park at Big Red of the Rockies. I am in the back room here. It's the mother of all Husker dens. You want some incredible memorabilia? They've got it here at Big Red of the Rockies. You're headed to Boulder. You want to wear that red proudly. All sorts of gear here as we are just smiling, man. Excited to be here at Big Red of the Rockies. Vic from Denver is now Vic in Estes, as he has made an appearance. Grandma Brandt has come by. We almost found them a pair of seats for Saturday at face value, but that fell through, unfortunately. Numbers to get in today here on Hail Varsity Radio, 489-1240, 489-1240, and can find us also on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, at Herbal Essence. For Elijah Herbel, watch the show. See what I'm talking about. Behind me, all sorts of proof of said memorabilia. If you jump on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel or the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio. Loaded show. We're about 5 minutes away. If Nebraska wants to win Saturday, it's going to be a black and blue, grind it out, downhill run ball game, right? Well, you do that with a fullback, one of the greatest fullbacks, Joel Makovicka, with us here in about 5 minutes. We'll check in with Joel, get his take on Nebraska-Colorado. Brandon Vogel joins us from Counter Reed. He'll be coming up here in about 20 minutes. Then in hour two, Gary Barnett previews Nebraska-Colorado, and Mr. Blackshirt himself, Charlie McBride. It is Burke's Best Bets. NFL season kicks off tonight. Daddy Burke with us at Daddy Burke 5 with him, as he'll also get some thoughts on the Nebraska-Colorado matchup. What are some props that may land for you? What's he think of that -3 line? As Elijah, it is all sorts of fun here in Estes. Got in. I know you're traveling out tomorrow. Going to be excited to have you with us. Of course, just a slew of events here tonight. We're at Big Red of the Rockies. We're at the Battle in Boulder event at the Ridgeline Hotel here in Estes tomorrow night with Gary Michaels. And then, of course, the Blur event coming up Saturday, pre and post game with Hail Varsity on the road. So, hey, how are you feeling as you inch closer to kickoff? This is pretty cool. When we talk about storylines and some themes, you have the opening act, which was Nebraska. You ever go to a movie, pay too much, and not like the movie? Yeah, it's happened. Quite frankly, it's happened with a lot of the Adam Sandler flicks I've checked out. There's 3 Adam Sandler movies that you're good with, and you keep watching. The rest of them, give me a refund. And then there's Colorado. And what is their encore look like? What's the encore look like for the Buffs? Elijah, your wheels are turning. The mustache looks glorious.
Thank you.
The mountain breeze, the doors open here at Big Red of the Rockies. Hey, I'm smiling, man. It's going to be a great weekend of football.
Yeah, I just wasn't expecting us to talk about Adam Sandler movies here to lead off this show. Of all things we could have been talking about.
I'm absolutely saying that, listen, you saw Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore and Bulletproof, and you're like, this guy's money. And then the next 10 come out, and you're like, what was that?
But then there's Uncut Gems. There's Uncut Gems, though.
Yes. There was the comeback. The Uncut Gems is great.
And then what's the one with him where he's
Gems is wonderful.
Where he's the NBA scout too? There's that one as well.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, that one I shouldn't forget the name of it. That's a good movie though as well. So Adam Sandler's really made a name for himself here recently, and
sure.
I'm not sure where I'm going with that, but I just didn't want the Adam Sandler slander here on a Thursday afternoon.
No, Sandman's money, but there was a stretch post Happy Gilmore that, listen, you just left wanting a little more. So speaking of you have Colorado celebrating on social media, Colorado celebrating headline-wise that 50% of their stadium's going to be black and gold. 50%, well, maybe 40% of said stadium will be red and white. The 60-40 ratio is being cheered and triumphed today, 48 hours ahead of kickoff. That tells you about Nebraska fans willing to spend their green. As Gary Novotny right now is ready. Yeah, that's from Vic in Denver. We've got the tequila and we have Templeton Rye, which is wonderful. I have not opened either, Elijah, before you start accusing me of things. We'll get to some of your comments. Keep your emails coming. Chris@HailVarsity.com. Excited to have just the opportunity to be here at Big Red of the Rockies. And a big thank you to our friends at Lazares and Sauter Heyman helping power these road trips this football season. Black and blue ball game. It's going to be all about that line of scrimmage play. What's your fullback going to do? And we'll check in with Joel Makovicka here in just a moment as we'll talk Buffs and Huskers for him. So the shakeout on StubHub and Vivid Seats shows just a lot of Nebraska acquisition going on when it comes to the seats in Folsom Field. We'll see how that transpires. Crew tells me to take advantage of the marijuana. I don't believe they sell weed in Estes. It may be the only place in Colorado they don't have helpers. We welcome in a Hall of Fame fullback, great player for Nebraska, multiple-time national champion. He wishes he too was out in Estes, but he is back in Nebraska. Joel Makovicka with us to get things kicked off. Mr. Makovicka, have you shot birdie par yet today?
Oh, Smitty, if you'd see my golf game that I never get to golf anymore. So I would like to be out in Estes with you. I haven't been to Big Red of the Rockies forever.
Well, I'm staring at a wall of fame here, and every Husker that comes in signs the wall. When you're growing up, Joel, did mom and dad measure like age 10, Joel, 5'9"?
Yeah.
I assume, right? So they don't have the heights here, but they've got different eras of Nebraska players that come in the store. They signed the wall just around the corner with their year and the number. It's pretty cool. They need a Makovicka signature.
That's pretty wild. Does Jesse Cush still own that?
Gary owns it, but I think Jesse had it for a while. I might say
yeah,
Jesse
he had it for a while.
He was the punter for your '97 team, wasn't he?
Absolutely, and his dad played defensive back, and then Jesse was punter for our '97 team.
So hopefully we'll bump into Cush. How are you feeling, man? Saturday's around the corner.
You know what? I'm excited for this game because all the hype's on Colorado. I hope the guys are excited to be able to go into Boulder and play. I think they should be pumped. This is good. I think it's going to be an exciting game. I don't think there's a lot of people around the country that think it's exciting, but anytime you play Colorado, I think you can throw the records out. That's kind of the rivalry we had when we were there. There was a time, 97, I don't think they were ranked. And we went up to Boulder, and we were beating them pretty bad, and I think they got 2 onside kicks, and the score ended up being 27-24. So anything can happen in this game. I hope the guys are ready and take advantage of this opportunity.
It's Joel Makovicka with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Joel, we heard some thoughts from Matt Rule earlier. We'll get to them a little bit later in the show. But one of them, I'm going to paraphrase for Matt Rule. It's not his words exactly, but this is kind of the heart of his point, was that Saturday's matchup, Nebraska wants to be physical. Colorado can be flashy. They can have that speed, but Nebraska wants to be physical. That's the mentality he's trying to ingrain within the team. Whenever you think about flashy versus physical, what does that make you think of? Because I think your Husker teams back in the 90s, they embodied that physicality well. What does flashy versus physical mean?
Well, I think I love hearing Coach Rule say that, because I think that's what Nebraska has to get back to if we want to get back to the level we want to get to. I think we have to be a physical football team. And to me, that's a mentality of being able to run the ball on offense, be able to run it down people's throat and wear them out in the fourth quarter, and then be physical on defense and be able to tackle. So I really like that Rule is embracing that mentality, and that's what Nebraska needs to be. It was kind of, like you mentioned, in our day, back in the 90s, that's what it was, is we were really physical, and Colorado had Coach McCartney and Coach Neuheisel and some of those guys that everybody talked about, the high-flying offenses and the fun and gun, even with Florida, and we were just considered, archaic because we just like to run the football and be physical and wear people out in the fourth quarter. So that's what that mentality and what Coach Rule is talking about to me is I think he wants to muddy up this game. He wants to have long possessions. He wants to take possessions away from Colorado, and he wants to be physical. And you know what? Sometimes a 8-play drive that takes 5 minutes and you punt the football and you don't turn it over is a good drive. And you just want to shorten the game, muddy it up, be physical, and see where the cards end up at the end of the game. And I think that's a great mentality for him to have, and that's kind of what we did. And they're showing that a little bit against Minnesota. They ran some fullbacks, some ice, and things like that. So I would like to see that more, but we'll see how it plays out on Saturday.
Joel Makovicka is with us, Hail Varsity Radio, here at Big Red of the Rockies, Estes Park. Get ready for the Nebraska-Colorado weekend. Joel, I want to get thoughts from you along the lines of being physical. The option attack. There was some belly option that was shown against Minnesota. Not maybe a couple 3-play calls, but you have the fullback, which I know makes you smile on that counter trap, but also the ability with a guy like Sims to get outside and use his legs. That's his strength. And, the other side of it, you've gone up against tons of defenses that had problem defending the option. Do you expect more option on Saturday?
That's a great question, Schmidt, and you hit the nail on the head. I think our quarterback, Jeff Sims, I think that's a real threat of his legs. He's an unbelievable athlete. You saw that he can change games with his legs, and the thing about it is talking to Coach Satterfield and even Coach Rule, and before the season, they were talking about bringing back the fullback, and a lot of people talk about that, but I think they have emphasized this because you saw it in the first game. The key to all of that is when you're kind of changing into that offense and you want to get fullback more on the field and maybe run a 2-back system, 40-50% of the time, you have to have a dog on the roster that's a fullback that can show the coaches that they can get it done. Because if you don't have that, then as the season progresses, it just doesn't become a facet of the offense, and they don't put more plays into the offense. So I hope some of these guys on the roster step up at the fullback position and can show these coaches that they're a dog and they can go get it done. And I think if that happens, they will run it more and more, and then show them that they can carry the football, and that just adds another threat that the defense has to defend against. And then you throw in the quarterback that can beat you with his legs, and that's tough to defend. If you got 3 options in the backfield where they can take it to the house or they can make positive plays and really beat down the defense, that's difficult for a defense to defend. So I hope we see that, and I think that's what we can do against Colorado. TCU, if you watch that, they gashed them for, I think, 270 yards, almost 7 yards a carry. So they watched that film, and Colorado watched the film as well. But I think that's what Nebraska has to do to compete in this football game.
Well, line right now is at 3. Joel Makovicka, Hall of Fame fullback, with us, getting us kicked off. Hail Varsity Radio, live at Big Red of the Rockies in Estes Park. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Joelster, we'll get you out. I know it's just an incredibly busy time for you. Every time I turn around, there's a new Makovicka physical therapy going up, brother. Congrats on that. So I'm going to put you on the spot and ask, A, is it okay to drink soda with tequila? I got a tequila bottle, a gift from Vic in Denver. B, what's the score Saturday? I need both answers.
Well, A is absolutely tequila sodas is the way to go. And this is why, Schmitty. You can drink as much as that as you want, and you're not going to have a hangover because it's one of the cleanest liquors out there. So go after the tequila in Colorado. I'll tell you that. And tequila, soda, and a lime, you'll be primed.
Go after it.
2 limes.
I got to go after the tequila soda in Colorado. That's the advice from Dr. Makovicka. I love it.
Yeah. And then you know what? I have to say I think Nebraska beats them, and people can call me a homer and an alum and drinking the Kool-Aid, but I saw some great things in Nebraska against Minnesota. They gave that game away. Obviously, I mean, we have to find ways to win, and until we start doing that, we find ways to lose. And hopefully, this weekend we find a way to win. And I think Coach Rule is going to muddy this game up, like I said, and I think we're really decent. We're really decent on defense, on all levels of the defense, and our offensive line played well against Minnesota. I think where we struggle is we need some receivers to step up and be able to stretch the field and get open, and that might be tough against a guy like Travis Hunter and those types of things, and then let Jeff Sims run the ball and work the two-back system and work the spread running the ball. And I think Nebraska can get it done. Our defense has to hold them to, I think, 24 points or under, which might be a struggle, but I think we can get it done 27-24.
There he is. Joel Makovicka says 27-24. Joel, thanks for the time, brother. Always appreciate you.
All right, man. Anytime.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
All right, one prediction is in from a fullback named Joel. Joel Makovicka got us kicked off. He says 27-24 Nebraska. We welcome in from Counter Read Brandon Vogel. He's in his football office. For the first time in my life, I have a backdrop as cool as his. Hail Varsity YouTube channels where you can stream the show, Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed. So apparently behind me, Vogues, is part of uniform from a Florida Gator and a Miami Hurricane during those back-to-back championships. You see it over my right shoulder, the scoring explosion poster. My name is covering it, but it's signed by all three of the triplets. And then behind you is, well, published work with John Cook that you wrote. So you win. That's what I'm saying. I love it. How you doing, man? It's Colorado Nebraska week. This always makes you and I smile growing up like we did with this bitter rivalry.
Yeah, I agree. Before, I don't know if I win because, as you pointed that out, I now see the Florida Gator pants, and it makes sense that the other one is Miami. But the thing I love about that, for those of you on the stream, is that inside that frame, it just says pants. So very well done. Take a peek behind the shoulder and check it out if you hadn't noticed that yet. No, Nebraska-Colorado, with my specific age. So in 1987, first Nebraska football game I ever went to was Oklahoma. So
sure,
growing
game
up,
of the century, right? Part two.
That was the team that my parents, despised the most. But when I was an annoying teenager, preteen, junior high type of age, Colorado was really the team that was coming in the early 1990s. And as a person who grew up in the Mountain Time Zone, spent a lot of time in Colorado, including in Estes Park. So this one does feel a little different than, just your average, your run of the mill P5 non-conference matchup. So, and I mean, in terms of storylines, the setup, the whole thing, it kind of doesn't get better than this Nebraska-Colorado matchup that we got after Nebraska losing the way it did and also Colorado winning the way it did.
Brandon, whenever you look at this game, I think you can look at it at two ways. With the opportunity, Nebraska to break a road losing streak against ranked opponents, to break a losing streak in general against ranked opponents, and to do it in front of the massive TV audience that will likely be on hand Saturday with how many numbers that Colorado pulled last week. You think that number is probably going to grow this week. The opportunity is massive, but I think you can also look at it from a bad omen point of view. There's a lot of bad juju that Nebraska has to break for things to go right on Saturday. Which side of that coin are you on in terms of opportunity or maybe foreboding of this game on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm definitely not on the foreboding side, though. I see what you're saying, and I think, as tough as it was for Husker fans maybe last Thursday night, the way Nebraska lost, the fact that it lost in like the same way it's been losing for the past 2 seasons for sure, but really the past 5. That from a national perspective, so say the same person who's kind of independent of Nebraska sits in and watches, like I'm going to watch a Nebraska game because it's Thursday night. This is one of the first games in college football. And I'm going to watch the Colorado game because, Coach Prime. They probably watch the Nebraska game and say, well, that's the Nebraska I've seen recently. And they watch the Colorado game and it's totally different. I think that's to Nebraska's advantage. So you mentioned some of those things like going on the road against a ranked team. All of those things would be a real momentum builder, I think, for Nebraska. But I don't think there's a ton of downside here because everybody has moved so fully to Colorado in this game that Nebraska gets a little bit of a free roll. Husker fans will hurt if they're 0-2 after 2 games, of course, but the season's not lost at that point. So I think it's advantage Huskers in terms of the motivation, all of the non-tangible stuff around this game. I think favors Nebraska a little bit.
The meat and potatoes part, the physicality versus the flash, to a point Elijah made in segment 1, really is the storyline. And you know what is going to be a fascinating study for me, and right now I guess we'll know after 2 games, but I'm not really that concerned about Nebraska's defense. I think they'll probably give up some yards, maybe give up some points, but nothing like TCU did. That said, this is going to be your new normal. This is going to be going from Minnesota or Iowa, where it's 2 tight ends, 5 320-pounders, and downhill run game for 4 quarters, to here's 5 wide with 5 guys that run 4-2 and 10 deep balls a quarter. You're going to have to be that diverse defensively to live life and survive in the Big Ten. That's what I'm anxious to see in year 1 of Rule, in year 1 of Mr. White, science, how he can use the personnel. And Nebraska's got all sorts of personnel to try and get down. You gave up 13 points, 10 of which points off turnovers. and then we'll see what the point total and yardage is for Nebraska's black shirts after Saturday afternoon. But how do they live that life? Are they able to be good against both types of offenses?
I think they can be. I think against Minnesota was an encouraging first step. And that's one of, all offseason long, we talked about the 3-3-5 and how it's malleable. You can really disguise what you do and bring people from everybody. It's kind of like a amoeba defense. But because it is that way, it allows you to play in Minnesota one week and a Colorado next week and not have to really change a bunch about what you do. The defense is kind of set up. The first snap of that Minnesota game, they essentially had 4 defensive linemen. They walked somebody down, and that's just kind of part of this scheme. So it helps. It helps with that. I think Nebraska's defensive backs have to play well on Saturday. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the deep shots, and Colorado's going to take them. And they're important, when you're talking about 30, 40, 50, maybe more yards in a chunk. And Colorado does have the athletes. They're going to win some of those. If you can keep it to 50-50 on those sorts of plays, you're doing pretty well. I think the big thing, and I wrote this in my preview for this morning, was it's all of the little stuff. So this Sean Lewis offense is really, really good and dangerous. You take out kind of their 8 explosive plays, and then Colorado was down to about 5 yards per attempt, which is, pretty low to average in college football. Those are the ones I think Nebraska has to disrupt because, TCU was 45-42, but the underlooked thing there, I think, was that Colorado had almost 9-minute advantage in time of possession. We know how Nebraska wants to play, how they probably should play offensively in this game. If you can flip that, and you'll give up some big plays, but not that many. I mean, that's kind of the way that Nebraska does this on Saturday in my mind.
It's Brandon Vogel with us here. And Brandon, if you go back about 90 seconds, you said something I really loved. You called Tony White's 3-3-5 the amoeba defense. Trademark that if you haven't just yet. I love that. I think that's going to stick. But whenever you look at this defense as a whole, which level, D-line, linebacker, or secondary, which one do you think has the largest challenge? Not the one that needs to perform best, but which is going to have the most on its shoulders on Saturday? And I think you can obviously look at the defensive backs with Travis Hunter, but the defensive line is going to have some pressure on them too to make sure they get some pressure on Shedeur Sanders. And you can look at the linebackers too with all the crossing routes that Colorado ran against TCU. There's going to be some pressure on them to get their drops and get their coverage right. Which level of that defense has the most pressure on them?
Yeah, it's a good way to dial into that, because I do think the DBs probably need to have the best game defensively. The D line, if Colorado can play like it did against TCU, which was part of what I was talking about with the rest of the passes that averaged a little over 5 yards, like it was all real quick. It was they're in a shotgun 3-step drop, like make a read and get it out. Nebraska has to disrupt that. So I think it has an edge in terms of pass rush. I just don't know, like this offense is sort of designed. Sean Lewis, at Kent State kind of built an offense that was meant to live with an offensive line that maybe wasn't going to be the best. And that's Colorado's O-line still, I think, even after game one. So there's just some pieces of that they just do naturally that might neutralize a little bit of that pass rush. So I'd put the onus actually on the linebackers. I think they might have the biggest challenge because 2 of those 8 explosive passing plays went to a running back, and 2 of them went for touchdowns of over 45 yards. That's a challenge. You mentioned they ran a couple of concepts a lot of times. So Nebraska's linebackers, they've got some real good downhill guys. This is a different challenge. So I'll go with that group.
Josh chimes in, and Vogues, we may need to keep you a couple minutes on the other side, but it's a fair question for Josh with Henrich back. Do you stick with Bullock because of the speed and that Buffs offense, or do you go with experience? And I stick with Bullock. That's just me. And you want to see Henrich able to be in and perform, but I like the lateral mobility of Bullock right now with what he's been able to do. Plus, he's done a hell of a job tackling this year.
Yeah, he has, and this will be a big tackling game again. And I kind of lean the same way. Having Nick available is a huge boost. This is not an offense, I think, that would play into Henrich's strengths specifically. So, Bullock, I thought, played really well, in his first start, and has obviously had a really strong offseason to kind of get to this point. A little light by classic Big Ten linebacker standards, but you're not playing a Big Ten team. So I kind of lean your way of, I could see his unique skill set being a little bit of an advantage. Nick will play plenty, but I would expect him to maybe get the start.
Vogues, hang on for us for just a couple of minutes if you can. On the other side, we'll get some more thoughts. Brandon Vogel with us from Counter Read. Reminder about workers' compensation. Your friends at Dyer Law, confused about your options for workers' compensation? Put your trust in the team at Dyer Law to help ensure that your rights are protected and to get the settlement you deserve with Dyer Law. The team today, Dyer.law. That's Dyer.law. Dial them up, 1-888-DYER-LAW. That's 1-888-DYER-LAW, your trusted team and professional group when it comes to workers' compensation. More with Brandon Vogel of Counter Read. Gary Barnett coming up. Charlie McBride on the way. Nebraska Buff Week continues.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Doing some overtime here. Big Red of the Rockies, Hail Varsity Radio Roadshow here in Estes Park. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and Brandon Vogel with us from Counter Reed, as it is just a glorious day out in Estes. Went down the road, our man Evan here at Big Red of the Rockies in Nevada. He said, "You want a buffalo burger?" I said, "I do." And he pointed me the right direction. Medium rare, fantastic. I have had a beer, Elijah, so you lose the over bet there on how many. Listen, it is just so much fun being out as part of this rivalry. Continues to bubble up. So Big Red of the Rockies today, Hail Varsity Roadshow, Ridgeline Hotel tomorrow, the battle in Boulder. Nevada, are there any seats left? Four. As in what I scream when I golf with Nevada off the tee box. Four. And of course, Blur tailgate going on with Hail Varsity Weekend Edition, opening up for pregame and then there for Real Red Reaction postgame. Vogues, I got all of my spiel done. I want to get back to football with you. We know the spotlight's been on Colorado and Dion. He's more than absolutely paid for himself. Colorado is the talk of college football for the first time since Hagan, Bieniemy, McCartney 30-plus years ago. What would it look like in your eyes for Nebraska with that conversation? Say they go in Saturday, get a win, a wow win Nebraska as a program desperately wants and needs. What would that conversation look like about Nebraska here in 2023 if they go pull this off?
I think with the way that Nebraska wants to play and the way the coaches have put it, it would, thinking broadly, thinking nationally of how this would be received, not only would it be Nebraska would get its own sort of proof of concept, which I would say wasn't really on offer against Minnesota, especially like after the first 10 minutes with, when we had an idea of like, oh, how Big Ten is this game? So my 9-month-old loves that game. So sorry, it's ingrained to me. Doing that against Colorado, I mean, that was the question people had all offseason. Like, you can be surprised that Shedeur Sanders was as good as he was in his first, Power 5 game. But I think people knew he was good. Travis Hunter was the number one recruit in the country. He just happened to go to Jackson State because Dion. So there was no doubt that those guys were good players. The question all offseason that I heard most often from college football observers was like, how do you hold up on the line? Like, what's it look like in the fourth quarter, when you're trying to build two lines from scratch, essentially. And I don't know if TCU really put that question to Colorado, and maybe that's just the way that the game unfolded. That last drive, after rushing as well as TCU did with 4 minutes to go, still shocks me. They came out and threw on their first six plays of that drive. I think Nebraska plans to put that question to every team it plays, but it happens to line up against a Colorado team that I think a lot of people will be interested if that question is put to them. And if Nebraska comes away with a win, they'll get some credit, but it honestly might be more damaging to Colorado than it is a boost to Nebraska. And I think that's okay. We're 2 games in at that point.
It's Brandon Vogel with us here on Hail Varsity Radio talking Nebraska-Colorado. And Brandon, Matthew chimes in on the StreamYard. He says if Sims passes more than 10 times, he will have 2 picks. I think that might be a little extreme. The bounce back, we'll see how that goes. But tell me what Nebraska needs from Jeff Sims on Saturday from a stats point of view in order to give themselves a chance.
Yeah, he'll pass more than 10 times. I put the number to hit for him with the interceptions at 1. Like, I'll give you 1 deflected pass, bad read, something. Like, you get to 2, and all of a sudden, like seeing a Nebraska win gets a little bit harder for me, or maybe a lot harder for me, he's got to play well. And 2 of his interceptions against Minnesota to Tyler Nubbin, that guy's really good, like All-American potential type good. Not that that's an excuse, because the end zone interception was just it was a little bit of a strange play call when you look back at it, running the concept they did to the short side, but also just the wrong read. So there's that piece of it. I think Sims, like, the big onus on him is to be a part of the run game. Like, I don't want to dumb this down too far, but like 15 pass attempts, say go 9-10 of 15, sound pretty great to me, because that would mean Nebraska was having enough success to run the ball as much as I think they potentially could here. So these numbers, if Nebraska wins, the numbers against Colorado offensively could look very, very option-like, which, hey, who has a problem with that?
It would be a fitting tribute with these 2 teams. Brandon Vogel, counter read with us at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter. Bogues, before we say goodbye, how can folks read you? How can they get in touch with you? And then, 2, I need a prediction if you're ready to do that. And if not, no worries.
Yeah, you can find us, myself and Aaron Sorensen, with our new newsletter at counterread.com. Just put out the Colorado preview this morning, and I put up some well, what I believe is some really good stuff throughout the week. So check that out, and you can find us there with that prediction. I'll save a score for the Saturday show, so tune in then. But I'll give you Nebraska against the spread at +3, which was what it was at the last point I looked. I like that quite a bit.
That's I'm liking it too. We need to twist Elijah's arm to find out how much he liked it, or may fall in love with it before he finds his way to Boulder.
Well, what's the casino situation in Boulder? Is it legal out there, or is it not?
I think everything is legal in Boulder. All right. I just don't know if of all my times in Boulder, I have found the one table in a downtown bar that had a Bowie knife blade carved "Go Big Red" into it. I found happy Husker fans. I've found sad Husker fans, but I have not found a casino in Boulder. I have not done that yet, but I've not looked that hard. Bogues, we'll check in with you on Saturday. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
There he is. Brandon Vogel, counter read with us as Hail Varsity here at Big Red of the Rockies as Roadshow Part 1 tomorrow. Ridgeline Hotel, Coloradoans for Nebraska event, the battle in Boulder. We're there as things get kicked off. Really going to be fun tomorrow night. Just 4 seats remaining there. You can log on Big Red of the Rockies to pull the trigger on that. If you want to hang out tomorrow night, some really cool stuff. A Q&A, Tommy Frazier, Adam Carricker, a part of that. And, of course, all sorts of Nebraska fans here in Estes, man. It's great. Then Blur, Saturday pre- and post-game. Come see us there as we get you ready for Nebraska-Colorado. Real Red Reaction follows. We'll wind down Hour 1. Gary Barnett, get a preview Nebraska-Colorado in Hour 2.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Back to you, Hail Varsity Radio Road Show here. Big Red of the Rockies, Estes Park, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Hope you're all well, gearing up for the battle in Boulder. As Big Red of the Rockies, man, who hasn't been to Estes? We've all been to Estes. We love being here. Just glorious weather. You can go around the corner, get a bison burger, buffalo burger, and plenty of Big Red gear. 489-1240, 489-1240. I have been awful at getting to your comments. Please keep them coming. We will read them. We will get to them in the stream, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel, the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed. Can watch the show both ways. And pretty excited next hour perspective from Coach McBride. Charlie, We didn't catch him Monday. We're going to catch him here at 5:25. Gary Barnett. What's he seen this week from the Buffs practice-wise? We've talked about the storyline being, do you get too fat and happy? Is that a real thing with Colorado? And if you're Nebraska, how do you change that conversation? Oh, no, here you go again. So that's a focal point and needs to be a fourth quarter game for Nebraska. So Coach Barnett, Coach McBride next hour, and then Danny Burke will join us with your gambling insight. Get his take on the Chiefs tonight. Get his thoughts on Nebraska-Colorado. What's he like? What's he think of that -3 or that -3.5? Elijah, are you all right, brother? Because I'm the diva that flew out today. You're driving tomorrow after the KFOR morning show. You're going to be, health permitting, from an exhaustion standpoint, in for hour 2 tomorrow, in time for Clausburn's Friday forecast, before we get the Battle in Boulder Coloradoans for Nebraska event kicked off. Are you geared up? You're going to be running hot.
Oh, yeah. No, I can do all things through caffeine who strengthens me, So I'll be rocking the coffee tomorrow.
Not how that goes. But
I'll be rocking the caffeine, the coffee, maybe a little road trip Red Bull. I'll be good there. We'll see. I'm either going to be in Estes. If time is not permitting, I will be in my grandmother's basement. One of the two. Either way, I'll be checked in some way with the show tomorrow. Maybe I'll even pull over on the side of old I-76 and do a couple hits from there if I can get some reception. One way or another.
Show hits. We got to specify once you cross the border.
That is a great point. I didn't even think about it like that. Yes, in some way, shape, or form, though, I will be involved with this show tomorrow. I should note, though, before we get to Danny Burke, Husker line down to Buffs by 2.5 today. And this is after we discussed.
So the line has dropped. The line has dropped the whole point.
And this is after yesterday we're talking about all the money's still on Colorado. If the line was going to move, as we thought yesterday, it was going to move towards Colorado to get buyback on Nebraska. It's instead moved towards Nebraska. Maybe there's been a significant amount of buyback within the past 24 hours. Or maybe, just maybe,
in trouble on the Colorado football team.
Maybe. That's possible. Maybe, though.
It happens.
Vegas is trying to trap the general public and say, hey, yeah, no, it's a great time to bet Colorado. They're hot, and they make a boatload of money. All I know is Vegas is great at making money. Something still a little fishy about that line. We'll get Danny Burke's take on that here in about 45 minutes.
Should be all right. Gary Barnett, Charlie McBride, hour 2 on the way. Hail Varsity live here at Big Red of the Rockies, glorious Estes Park. Hour 2 continues. Hail Varsity Radio presented by Currency. Big thanks to Lazares and Sauter Heyman for this road trip.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back with you. It's hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio Road Show up in Estes, Big Red of the Rockies, where we're perched at. We say hi to the Hall of Fame coach, Gary Barnett. Coach, I think the operative word this week, crazy. A lot of folks crazy for college football. Husker fans invading, and of course, all sorts of buzz in Buffland. How are you doing?
Well, I'm holding on, Chris. Barely holding on. I have my calendar in front of me, and I'm looking at all the calls that I get to take, and get different people I get to talk to about this last game and about the next game, and it's I literally have to have my calendar in front of me to keep track of the phone calls that are going to happen here for me in the next 3 days. And I've already had, same thing. So unintended consequences is the play-by-play, and the poor color guy gets to do all the talking. So
well,
there you go.
Let's talk about the last game. You've experienced taking over a program and going in and having a big win early in your tenure at Spots. How about what happened in Fort Worth, that shootout, that moment that's kind of reverberated throughout this week in college football, the big time Colorado win over TCU?
Well, I first of all, Mark Johnson and I would be the first ones to tell you that we're probably the only two guys in the media that get to watch practice every day, and I'm there every day. Mark usually catches a little bit, but Mark's a play-by-play guy. He's not a real football guy. But so I still didn't know what was going to happen. I really, anything could happen. I've watched in practice. I watched Travis Hunter make all those plays every day. I watched Dylan Edwards run through our defense every single day. I watched, that they go an hour and 20 minutes, full speed, really up tempo. They don't go any longer than that. They never take anybody to the ground, but they are up tempo. And so I watched Shedeur, and I watched him do everything he did in that game in practice, but I still didn't know how they were going to do. I didn't know how this was going to come across. I mean, I don't think we knew enough about TCU because they'd had a lot of transfers as well. So when it did unfold, it was pretty exciting. But I can tell you that everything I saw in that game, I've seen in practice. And so they have a lot of skill, and Shedeur's a really good player, and everything that you saw. So was it a surprise? No, because I'd seen it. Was it a surprise because it happened? Yeah, and just the way it did, and for those guys to hold on and have 7 lead changes in the last 17 minutes, that was a remarkable game to call, but it was also had to be a great game to watch. Just no matter who you're rooting for, just a lot of good plays. So, does this continue? I don't know. I mean, who knows? As a coach, you never know. You can play completely different the next week than you did the week before. So last week we played about as well as you can play on offense. There's always mistakes, things you can fix, and but now you got to turn around and handle all the media and all the attention that they've gotten. I mean, you look at this game, and both teams it's been just the opposite. All of a sudden, we got all this attention. Not that we didn't have it coming in, but now it's been somewhat legitimized. And so, our kids are getting all this attention and love, and your kids are probably, everybody's disappointed, But Matt Rule is sitting back and he's watching this thing. He's letting it play out, I mean, Deion has got to go from playing the no respect card to playing the total respect card. And Matt's going to play the no respect card all the way to the bank, possibly.
How many of those can you have in a deck? The no respect and we've got respect. And how do you massage both to stay winning or get winning? I mean, the psychological part of this, Coach, I'm interested in.
Well, I think it plays a little bit on the inside with your team, but you can't keep playing it. It's a one-card deal, I think. The interesting thing, Chris, with this, as I've watched this whole thing unfold, this team is very businesslike. On Thursday, I went to practice last Thursday, or maybe it was Wednesday, and I know with my kids, if I had a lot of young kids, they'd be so excited for that first game to come around. And these guys handled it. In fact, I was almost disappointed that they weren't more excited and pumped up in that practice. They went about it the same way they did every single day. And I think that's because they've got 60 or 70 guys that are 22, 23 years old, and they've been all through that, and they know that getting all that excited on the Wednesday doesn't do you any good. And so you got a much more mature approach than you normally could have if you've got 30 freshmen and 30 sophomores and 30 juniors. So it's a more mature approach to it, I think, than you can normally have.
Gary Barnett's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, Nebraska-Colorado. Here in Estes, Big Red of the Rockies, as we're previewing Nebraska-Colorado. Coach, you've been around Buzz, and I want to get your thoughts on that aspect of the atmosphere, the fan base, the Nebraska element of this early in the season. And you've seen and were a part and a reason for the build with Colorado reaching new heights, and you also did it at Northwestern. How do you compare this to your different experiences? What this week has been, the prime effect versus you and Mac, and then also your time at Northwestern. You've seen some really cool moments in college football.
Well, I think this thing comes as close to the year that we opened up and beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame. It's the same sort of feel. I mean, our quarterback was on Good Morning America. I was on late night radio, TV, all this stuff. And we had 2 weeks before we played our next game. And, you know, we practiced great. We did everything. And we did all this media stuff. And we were, you know, the talk of the town in Chicago. And we open up and go ahead 27-0 against Miami of Ohio. We lose our snapper, and 4 straight snaps go over the head or around or through the punter, and we lose on the last play of the game 28-27. So we went from just what happened last week at TCU, and just as surprising that we beat Notre Dame, to all of a sudden now we're done. I mean, we lose to Miami of Ohio. So you can imagine the air out of that balloon and what it smelled like. So, so our job was, now we had to overcome that. So no matter what happens, you got to overcome it. So you got to overcome all the hype that you got, and you got to overcome all the hype that you lost and the reason you lost it. So it's just a constant, and it just depends on how your kids buy in. It really is. And I think maturity has a lot to do with that.
Gary Barnett with us. Coach, your thoughts on Nebraska? We talked about the contrast here, the Buff win and then how Nebraska lost. And this was just game one under Rule, and it was a similar, how did that happen? And it was turnover driven. It was decision-making, yes, but it was turnover-related versus probably an attention to detail thing, if that makes sense. So Nebraska's trying to bounce back, but the fan base right now is still reeling a bit because, you know, that game was there to be had, and here comes Minnesota, 10 points, 3 minutes after your defense played a whale of a game. Concerns about the offense, concerns about Sims, the offensive line. What did you see? I know you've checked out and previewed that last Thursday night's game a couple of times.
Chris, first of all, I saw 2 really physical teams going after each other. You know, I get a lot of credit to Minnesota. That secondary is good. Mm-hmm. They're really good. And, you know, those kids played hard. And, you know, I turn around and see the same thing in Nebraska. That second half of Nebraska, they just took over the game. They just, you know, running game was great. You know, defensively they were good. I mean, it was a good physical football game. I really do think that that call on the goal line could have gone either way, literally. And I think Joel said that on the air, and it just, you know, I think if they'd have called it a touchdown initially, then it would have been ruled a touchdown after a replay. But it's hard to go against what you call the first time, and that's sort of the protocol that they use. So they didn't get the touchdown, you know, and that was huge. But, you know, to me, the struggle was obviously the passing game and whether or not you could get guys open. So that isn't going to change. You'll get better as the year goes on because you'll practice it and everybody will work at it. But to win this game, I think for Nebraska, they're just going to have to turn around and hand the ball off and run right at Colorado. I mean, Colorado gave up 262 yards rushing. And then you look at this is a clash of cultures, a clash of styles, a clash of coaching styles. It's a classic, you know. You guys played somebody just like you. We played somebody just like us. We won ours by 3. You lost yours by 3. And so, I mean, it's great TV. It's great TV, great radio for you. Mm-hmm. And where does it go? We don't know. I mean, it's why you play the game. I mean, that game that you guys played could have gone either way. That game we played, literally could have gone either way based on one play. And so that's what you love about this game, and that's what you get excited about watching, and you want it to be the other way. But what you really get juiced up for and in is when it happens the way it did. So one game is not a season, as you know. Hate not to be trite, but it isn't. And for either way, I'd tell that to every Colorado player, just like I'd say that to every Nebraska fan.
Coach, what to get your take? What do you like about Sims? Because I mean, that's going to be a storyline. Is Sims' rebound, and also Sanders' follow up after going for 5'10".
Well, what I like about Sims is he's 6'4", and secondly, he can run the ball. He's really good, and he can make most of the throws. He had trouble with a couple throws, but he can make most of the throws. He just, I've had quarterbacks like that. We were running the option, and you just got to be smart with it. And be smart, meaning, careful with it is really the better word. But he can hurt you with his feet, and he'll hurt some people with his arm. You wait and see. But he can. The first thing you do is, how am I going to stop this run? So my guess, you're going to see a lot of guys in the box, and they do a nice job. They ran the old belly option that Nebraska was so good at for years. So they do a lot of the things that I was used to defending when we played Nebraska. And so it looks very much like a team that I would have had to play against when I was coaching.
Where does each coach go with the rivalry part of this? Growing up here, knowing Nebraska-Colorado, you live in it as well. These are two new coaches that weren't a part of it. Is it touched on much, do you think, this week?
I heard Coach Sanders say something about it was personal. I've never heard him mention Nebraska in practice. I've never, during the season or up to this point, they're not big rah-rah about Nebraska in practice right now. They're pretty much going about their business and trying to get better. They have a bunch they have to get better at as well, just like Nebraska does. So I have not seen or heard within the football building, there's no signs up. There's nothing like that. It's just pretty much, a bunch of men going about their business.
Coach, we'll hit some rapid fire here if you're good with it. Big weekend of college football. And you have Utah at Baylor. I know Baylor dropped one early, but Utah kind of coming off an impressive win against Florida. Is Utah a sleeper for you for the playoff?
Not yet, but Utah is really good. They don't have Cam Rising playing yet, but Utah wins this game. They are too physical up front. They have done a great job in putting that program out and making it what it is. It is really a hard team to play.
A&M is at Miami. Upset alert for Jimbo?
I don't care.
Wow. So A&M and Miami, two of your favorites, it sounds like.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not watching it, so I don't know. A&M at Miami. I don't know. Let's pick Miami. They got 4 points.
Okay, there we go. Texas, Alabama. How about this one? -7 tied.
I just can't go against Alabama. They're just too solid, and they're good. Texas still got to convince me that they're as good as any of those teams like Alabama or Georgia. I don't see it yet, but they could convince me this week if they beat Alabama.
All right, Nebraska at Colorado, Buffs minus. I'm kidding. I don't think you can pick legally, can you?
I'm not picking that one. You're wasting your energy.
Coach, we'll see you on Saturday. Thanks for the time.
All right, Chris. Great being with you.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it at Hail Varsity Radio. We're out here in Colorado, out here in Estes Park. Of course, dear friend Gary Michaels having us out And we are ready. Nebraska-Colorado, legendary defensive coordinator Charlie McBride with us. Coach, it is Colorado-Nebraska week. Are you excited?
Sure. Yeah, I guess I have to be, right?
Yeah.
And people have been that, because I graduated, of course, from that school, and people always asking me, are you black and gold or red and white? And that I stay neutral on everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could be anybody, but it's just it should be a good game. I know that it got a little out of hand. I think maybe when we were playing, I think the word hate came up a lot, and hate, basically, if you read the Bible at all, hate means fear. And so when people come up with that terminology, or we hate Nebraska and all that stuff, it comes up salty. It takes a lot out of the game, because I loved our relationship with Oklahoma, because number one is it was all done with respect, and we knew and they knew that what kind of game it's going to be. I mean, it's going to be, you could be last in the league and get stoned, so it didn't make any difference. And, but I know that, I got to be good friends along. Milt did too, Tenneper and we've been down fishing with them. I play golf with some of their coaches, and we know them really well. And of course, Tom and Barry have been good friends and things like that. And, to me, that's football. Mm-hmm. When you're going to play somebody that's really tough, and if you don't play, you're going to get it. It's not, these people hate Nebraska or stuff like that. That to me is not where football should be.
Charlie McBride's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, a thought with you on this matchup here. What did you see from Minnesota, Nebraska, that can work out in favor for Nebraska? I mean, do you think Nebraska's got a good shot Saturday?
Well, I think, maintaining the football, they did a good job against Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota's a good football team, and and I saw some things I didn't like in the game, and and I usually don't say anything about officiating, but there's 2 or 3 calls in there that I can take you back on the film and show you that. Number one, that touchdown pass that's caught, the left tackle's moving, and it should be called, and it wasn't. And that's the worst one. The one on the goal line, okay, I can handle that one. That's a guessing game anyway. And then, people back in New York say it's a touchdown, and people at the game say it's not, or whatever the case is. But I think when you break it down, I think the good thing is I do see improvement in the offensive line. And I think, controlling the football was our name of the game, when we played. And I don't know what Coach Rule's exact, strategy is going to be. But he's been around the horn a few times, and so I would guess that he's going to try to keep the football and do some things that that are gonna make them work a little bit harder than they think. I think offensively, they're going to move the ball. They're going to throw it, and everybody that throws it kind of moves the ball on everybody. I mean, it's not one team that can just shut down the passing game anywhere. But the distance is, what are you going to do after you catch it? And how many turnovers is there going to be? Mm-hmm. And that's where you have to protect it. You have to protect the football in a game like this, or those turnovers will get you.
Colorado had, for what a lot of folks thought, a miracle win. They were underdogged by almost 21 points, and they won outright. It's been, they've been the toast of college football for a week. And how do they handle that spotlight, that success? They're really talented. Meanwhile, Nebraska is working on themselves, trying to clean things up. Coach, what did you see from the Nebraska defense? And what do you think the defense can do against Colorado on Saturday? I thought the Polar Bear played well. I know they're going to miss Robinson for a half, but I was really impressed with Nebraska's secondary as well.
Well, that's right, and I think those kids do a good job, and they take some pride in it. And the one thing is that you'll see that really I did not like about the secondary is that if you look at that touchdown pass, that the corner's looking in the backfield. And that's one thing you learn when you're first starting to play in the secondary. Don't be, you're playing man-to-man. Don't start looking in the backfield. You better cover the guy you're supposed to be covering. And I don't think that happened. And I could see on the TV that the distance was a good 5 to 7 yards away from him, and he was looking right in the backfield. And, that's the thing that, you got to get out of, you've got to play and use your athletic ability against these guys, because if you don't, they're going to be running up and down the field. And that's going to be, really important. And they're going to go deep. They may start the game out with a bomb. And I would expect something like that, from Colorado, a big splash at the beginning to get things going fast, to get them out of the hole. So that's going to have to be something that they better be aware of.
Coach, you mentioned the offensive line's better. What do you think Nebraska's run game needs to do Saturday? Obviously, take care of the football, hold the football, but can Nebraska go with a power attack Saturday as far as a way to win?
I think you're going to see a better run game this week. I'll be surprised if it's not. I think a lot of it was, the kids have something to prove. And it's not that they're playing Colorado. It's anybody that they play. It's just it's whoever their second game's with, usually it shows some improvement. And I think, and the offensive line is usually where you see it the most. And so I expect them to be better, and I expect them to be better every week. I think they got the people that can do it. They look like they're in shape. That's the biggest thing I see, is those guys look like they're in shape, and a lot of them show me more flexibility and things like that. So I think they've done a good job in the off season, and and I think they're going to do nothing but get better.
Couple minutes, Charlie McBride with us, Hail Varsity Radio, Mr. Blackshirt. So, Coach, what have you thought about Coach Dion and all the attention that's there with Colorado, and just kind of his persona? He said it was personal against Nebraska this week.
I don't know about the personal stuff, but that's him, and that's the way it is. But they'll be a disciplined team. They've got all coaches that have been some in the NFL, and some of them have been in college coaching. I'd guess that maybe it's 3-1 as far as years that they're gonna face. I mean, they're gonna face a bunch of experienced football coaches, and when you look at the number of guys, how long they've been in the big time coaching, whether it's the NFL or the college ranks, it wasn't we don't have very much, experience really, compared to what they have. Now, not that doesn't mean they can't do it. They can. But the thing is that experience always helps. And I know it helped me the first game when I started. I was, you're guessing and you're doing some things that you normally may not do because of the time pressures. When you only have about 10 seconds to call a defense or call an offense, that's not the easiest thing in the world. And it's something that you have to be aware of. I think that they are disciplined, and I think that they have worked that way. I've time and time again, I've heard people talk about them at practice and things like that, and that's the one thing they noticed. They said when they hit the field, it's all football, and they really work at it. And I know it's the same thing at Nebraska. I know it's a lot different practices than they've had in the past, and so it's going to be a matter of pride it's going to be a matter of the two states next to each other, whether it's Wyoming or Colorado or whoever, Iowa, that's all rivalry stuff, so that's going to happen. So if you make it good rivalries, respectful rivalries, and things like that, then it's fun because you know what to expect. I mean, I go into Colorado and, all the point spreads and all that doesn't mean anything, in a game like a rivalry game. And so that's what I'd look for is a fist fight, not physically, but, it's a real strong game on both sides. I think our defense could be a problem for them. And because it's not something that you really see in the NFL either. And a lot of those guys that have that kind of experience are going against something different.
Coach, last thought, what would a win mean for Nebraska Saturday?
Well, a win would be beating the team number one that's already in the top 25. And the thing that's happening right now is that because of our background in the last 10 years or so, it's been tough. And I think we've got to dig ourselves out of that hole. And I think it would do that, even though you're playing a team that has one win and so on and so forth, but they've already moved up in the polls, which is, pretty remarkable. Mm-hmm. So that's to me would be the biggest thing I think right now. So it'd get us out of the hole and people would stop putting teams in front of us that we can beat but haven't beaten. Mm. And so I think the one thing is win, lose or draw. The biggest thing I'm kind of maybe easy to get along with now, but I think when you're playing an on-conference game now, to me is improvement. Mm-hmm. To me is play better. And if we play the best we can play, we don't have any trouble at Nebraska. It won't be a problem.
Charlie McBride with us, and a Monday with Charlie a little later in the week. Coach, we'll check in with you next week, and always appreciate you taking time out.
Okay, thanks for having me. Good luck. Go Big Red.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Working through a Thursday road show. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're here in Estes Park, Big Red of the Rockies. The trifecta of road trips. We're here at Big Red of the Rockies today. Good to see Navat and company here. A lot of Nebraska fans here catching the show live, which is awesome. We will be at the Ridgeline Motel tomorrow for the Battle in Boulder event, which is outstanding. And then Blur, pregame and postgame with Hail Varsity, the road show powered by your friends at Lazari's and Sauter Heyman. Big thanks to the good folks at Gary Michaels for hosting us out here, Big Red of the Rockies. We welcome in Danny Burke, the pride of Chicago, and it is time for Burke's Best Bets. It is NFL Thursday night. We'll get Nebraska-Colorado takes from Danny as well. And Danny, tell folks about your website and where folks can get some gaming info from you, brother. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Yeah, thanks for making some time, Schmidt. Appreciate it as always, and hope you're enjoying the trip out there a little bit further west. But it's called burksbeat.com, and basically at the website we'll still be producing the same content, just going to be a lot more articles, write-ups for baseball heading into the postseason, college football naturally, covering all things Huskers and beyond. Hard not to, just like you fellas. And then plenty of NFL. I'll talk survivor contest strategy, best bets against the spread, total props, futures, all of those cool things. We'll have you covered over at burksbeat.com. And if it's an easier way to find it, I'm always tweeting out on Twitter at DannyBurke5. So looking forward to it, Schmitty.
burksbeat.com. Lock it in. So give us your take here, your Vegas wisdom on what the hell to think of this Colorado-Nebraska line. Where are you at? What's your feel?
Oh, Schmitty, this one is just, I don't like, I'm so excited for this game
but at the same time, I'm incredibly terrified as a Nebraska fan, right? Because last week was just, and I know it's been beaten, to death now, but it was just quite literally the epitome of what Nebraska has been for the past couple of years, especially last season. And you thought that with Rule in the mix, those things would alter. Now, we do have to slow our roll a little bit. It's the first game, and we knew there was going to be some turnover issues with Sims and yada, yada, yada. I know you discussed it ad nauseum. But look, if there is a bright spot to look at in terms of Nebraska and their chances against Colorado, it's one, Nebraska looked very solid on their ground attack. And Colorado against TCU, defensively speaking, looked like they were struggling against run. I mean, TCU racked up 262 rushing yards, so certainly that's going to be a focal point going forward for this Nebraska offense. So if they can control momentum, keep that rhythm going on the ground attack, that's your pro on the side of the offense. Now, defensively speaking, there were some moments in the first half where I was very concerned with the secondary, especially on third downs, but then they held their own in the second half. I do think this offense that Colorado has is going to be leaps and bounds better than what Minnesota ends up having. Minnesota's going through a big transitional period, and so is Colorado, but these guys have played with each other, some of them under Sanders, and clearly put up 45 points. Even though it's against a defense that is poor in TCU, you have to give respect where respect's due. I am not going to touch this game with a 10-foot pole, guys. I just think I'm already going to be going nuts as much as I already will being a fan. But I was telling Elijah, and I know he's been preaching it too, I mean, the amount of bets from the public that are on the side of Colorado is obscene. It's totaling some more of the handle that we have from the NFL Week 1 slate. And typically when everybody and their grandmother is on one side, it usually doesn't come through. But the caveat here is Nebraska is incredibly infuriating in how they find ways to lose games. So they may be the one exception to this. But, of course, I'm hoping that the boys can come and play competitively and that we get a good effort.
Danny Burke with us here, Burke's Best Bets on Hail Varsity Radio. And, Danny, what do you make of the fact, just quickly, that there's so much on Colorado, and then today I'm seeing late, this line is actually moving towards Nebraska. It went from Colorado being favored by 3.5 down to 3, and now at 2.5 despite all the bets towards Colorado. What's your read on that?
Yeah, I think that was kind of inevitable given just how much exaggeration this line has seen. And once you got over that key number, that you'd see a little bit of buyback on Nebraska. I'm sure it'll fall around that 2.5, 3 range when it's all said and done. But, a lot of times these bettors, and I'm not saying this is what happened, but, you'll make a bet so the line moves and then you can get a better price and then come back even harder on the other side. Maybe that happened, maybe it didn't. But, again, I think it was just inevitable because of the key number of 3 that you were going to get a little buyback on this Cornhuskers team. And it's just one of those things where you look at the numbers and you go, betting numbers, not teams. And no team, what bettors like to subscribe by, is as good or as bad as they were the past week. So don't let recency bias go all too crazy in your handicap, not even for this game, but every game. And I think that's what people are applying now that spread had gotten way over the number of 3.
Danny Burke with us, Hail Varsity Radio Roadshow here, Big Red of the Rockies in Estes Park. Burke'sBeat.com at Danny Burke 5. All right, NFL tonight, Chiefs -4, Detroit. They were a fun football team last year. I haven't said that since the Barry Sanders era. What do you think about the Chiefs tonight? And what's your long play? Have you made a decision, Danny, on who you like for futures in the NFL?
Yeah, so I got several futures. I'll get to that in a sec. But briefly on tonight's game with KC and Detroit, I've got nothing on the side or the total. But honestly, guys, at this point with the line coming down so much, it seems like, if anything, it'd be a better buy low spot on Kansas City. I'm going to trust someone who may go down as potentially the greatest quarterback of all time and one of the best coaches of all time, and Andy Reid, against the Lions, who, until proven otherwise, are still the Detroit Lions. Yes, the offense made progression. Yes, they may even get better, but defensively there are still so many red flags. But because there are red flags on the Chiefs' defense, I do think Detroit will score and we'll get a better in-game number with the Chiefs, so I'll wait till they get under the key number of 3 or a better money line price and attack them then. Otherwise, I did play a prop, Isaiah Pacheco over 50.5 rushing yards. Detroit was abysmal against the run. They allowed the 3rd most carries per season last year at 5.2 per handoff. Pacheco got over this mark in the last 8 out of 9 regular season games, and every time he got double-digit carries, except for one game, he eclipsed this mark as well. And without Travis Kelce, you do see a lot more run production, and I think they need to make that statement to keep the ball out of the strength of Detroit, which is their offense. and just to feature your top running back in Pacheco. So that's the prop that I got tonight and the lone official play. And then in terms of futures, I have a write-up pinned to my profile on Twitter for more in-depth analysis on it. But I took the Jets under 9.5 wins, Falcons under 8.5 wins, Commanders under 6.5 wins. Bears at plus 210 to be the most improved team. And no, it's not just me being biased. There's a reasoning why. And then I'm big on the Jags this year, guys. Trevor Lawrence MVP at 17-1. I really like that angle with T-Law heading into this season.
Danny, before we get you out of here, this is just a feel thing. This is not a betting thing. Who scores the first touchdown of the NFL season tonight?
Ooh. All right, well, I have a buddy who's been clamoring and saying it's going to be Patrick Mahomes, but for some reason I feel like it's going to be a statement made by Detroit, and it's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs, and they're going to get the rookie installed right away. Although they did say Montgomery was going to be the goal line guy, but I'll go a little out of the box and say Jahmyr Gibbs. Why not?
Did you check with JMO on this, Danny?
I did not yet. I did not check that yet. So, look, we're just throwing that one completely up in the air. And, if anybody's got any better advice for who's score the first touchdown, leave it my way.
I love it. Danny Burke, find him, burksbeat.com, at Danny Burke5. Pride of Chicago, thanks for the time, bud.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy the game. Talk to you next week.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time here, Big Red of the Rockies, Hail Varsity Radio Road Show. It is Colorado-Nebraska week. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Reminder to buckle up when you're making your way to Colorado for the Nebraska-Buff Showdown. One of every 3 fatal crashes in Nebraska involves an alcohol-impaired driver. Why take chances? If you drink, don't drive. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Be careful crossing that border. Be careful just when you get behind the wheel. Elijah will do a steak and a beer bet in a moment. Many thanks. Joel Makovicka, Charlie McBride, Gary Barnett, Brandon Vogel. Thanks to all of you who came out. That's Brandon from Emeritus. That's Vic from Denver. Happy birthday wish out to Mercury, Vic's little guy, having a birthday tomorrow. And so many of the fans that came by here at Big Red of the Rockies in Estes. We were at the Ridgeline Hotel tomorrow. The Battle in Boulder event with Coloradoans for Nebraska. Just 4 seats remain for that. So can log on BigRedOfTheRockies.com for that. And then we'll see it Blur in Boulder pregame Saturday morning, 6 to 8 Mountain, and postgame Real Red Reaction live at the Blur tailgate in Boulder. Blur Parties is where you log on for that. And 2 other sponsors to say many thanks to. Friends at Sauter Heyman, friends at Lazari's. Are you ready for a steak and a beer bet, Elijah? And it is sweet to collect a steak and a beer from you, even in Boulder Saturday night.
Are you wanting to bet Chiefs-Lions tonight, I assume? That's what you're talking?
I think we have to bet Chiefs-Lions tonight.
Okay, give me the spread then. What spread? I've seen this move around a little bit today with news of the Kelsey injury. What are we rocking with?
4. It's -4.
I'll take Lions 4.5.
I don't. You want the hook, huh?
Give me Lions 4.5.
Oh, that's fine. I will give you Detroit, and I will give you the 4.5. That means Mahomes and company better win by a touchdown. That means Mahomes better get Mr. Miyagi on the horn for Travis Kelce. But I don't think Kansas City drops it to Detroit tonight.
I guess we'll find out. Here's the thing, and this was the tradition most of last fall with our steak and a beer bet. Whoever jumped in,
pick, I win.
Yeah. Whoever jumped in and made the pick first would end up losing. So congrats to all the Chiefs fans out there. You guys are gonna have a big victory tonight. But when given the chance, as a Broncos fan, I am always going to take the opportunity to root against the Chiefs. I'm going to take the opportunity to root against the Chiefs. I have an even more substantive reason to root against the Chiefs tonight. I will take that all day long. The Lions, they're coming. 4.5. They're going to do it outright. I wasn't going to say that when I made my pick, but 4.5. They're going to.
Wow.
Fun fact.
You're not the one that. I mean, you didn't get the 5th at Templeton or tequila. I hope.
I saw a fun fact on Twitter. Here's what I saw. Jared Goff, in week 1 in his career, is 6-0 against the spread. Not 6-0 overall. He's 6-0 against the spread. I think that trend continues. I'm not a Jared Goff believer, but I do think that the Lions offense is something to watch out for this year. I think they keep up with the Chiefs all night long, and I think they pull out a 4.5-point loss or less.
Okay, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, get the podcast, Hail Varsity Radio. Watch the show, the segments you want, or the entire show. Can do so the Hail Varsity YouTube channel, Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed. Tomorrow, again, Battle in Boulder event, Ridgeline Hotel, 3 to 5. We are there. The event follows us, and so many big-time Huskers will be there. It's going to be awesome. We'll talk to you tomorrow from Estes. Big thanks to Big Red of the Rockies. Talk to you tomorrow at 3.